Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what's a job that's romanticized but in reality sucks? Veterinary medicine. Fantasy: I get to work with puppies and kittens. Reality: a 3-month-old kitten died in my care. I've seen so much gore and blood and neglect. I've sent animals home with invasive cancers because family can't afford treatment. I've been the only comfort shelter animals knew before they left this world. It is a specific and exhausting kind of pain, and it isn't really talked about enough. People who say they couldn't do it because of the euthanasia have no idea. Edit. Thank you to those of you who were kind and respectful. I will not be interacting anymore as recounting some of this is a little emotionally exhausting. But I'm going to plug this link for anyone, vetmed or not. https://www.umv.org. Have a good night everyone, and be kind to all living things. I've read so where suicide rate is high among veterinarians. The university I went to has a pretty big vet school that operates the only 24-hour emergency clinic in the area. Regular clinics run regular hours. That school employs its own dedicated therapist, exclusively for the vet students. Vet here, can confirm. I just lost a classmate to suicide a couple of months ago, and I'm up to about a half-dozen acquaintance or closer relationship vets that I've lost to it. I'm only 6 years out of vet med school, so pretty much losing someone I know to suicide on an average of about 1 per year. It's awful. I strongly suspect being a spy doesn't involve half as many high-tech gadgets and spontaneous sexual intercourse as I've been led to believe. One former member of the CIA said the most unbelievable thing about James Bond was that he never had to file an expense report. Super boring and lonely. Keep your head down with your local, usually shitty, job you're placed in and write reports at night. For years. Typically never leads to anything. My understanding is that due to biometrics at ports of entry, most undercover operators are lucky to get 2 covert assignments in their lifetime. Couldn't those assignments last for years though? And my understanding is that once they get enough experience, they are generally just managing assets. In fact, most spycraft is around accruing assets to gather the intel. Architect. You think you'll be designing big fancy iconic buildings? Warehouses, Walmarts, strip malls, and shitbox apartments all need architects, and that's probably what you'll end up doing. Also, the industry is obsessed with working themselves to death. Sure, you're on salary, but if you don't work over 40 hours, are you really an architect? I dated a girl in college who was an architect major. She was a sophomore and her professors trained those damn students to be up until 3 a.m. working on projects. Every time I came to the studio to visit her, 2 coffee pots were running simultaneously and no one left there before 10 p.m. Such a stupid culture around it. There is no reason for it, honestly. Seems like they prepare you for that culture even in school. My architecture friends in college spent easily twice as much time on schoolwork compared to what I did for engineering, and it's not like I was slacking off. I always wanted to pretend to be an architect. Art Vadley. Apparently lifeguard, because nobody can find them anymore. Hey man, want to be responsible for a ton of lives for minimum wage in the hot sun. You're also going to be mistaken for a babysitter, mocked for trying to create a safe environment, and pressured to cover your unreliable co-workers' shifts. Where do I sign up? Want to be responsible for a ton of lives for minimum wage in the hot sun. I think this is a key point, really. Yay, I know no one thinks they get paid enough. I feel like many who do try to be a lifeguard do so because they like swimming but don't realize most of the job is either sitting in a chair all day, in the hot sun, or marching up and down a beach all day. If the employers realized you need to be really good at swimming, not just passably good, then maybe they would increase the pay to closer to a specialized position, but like you said, they are mostly there to look pretty or whatever. Computer game development, especially testing. That is the arse end of an industry that is mostly arse. I was gonna say video game development, too. People think it's all about creativity and making something cool and fun, when the reality is a lot of bullshit. Treat em like shit, use em like toilet paper. ID game development, when it's just you and barely enough people to fill your car, that's amazing joyous fun. AAA game development is where hope, happiness, and creativity go to die. You're burned at both ends, wrung out of every ounce of joy you have ever had, and used like a 10-year-old cumsock. And management doesn't care, because they open their door, and there are 1,000 kids willing to fight a bare-knuckle brawl just for the interview. So why should management care about you? You want joy in game dev? Do it yourself. Source: worked for a commercial during the Super Bowl AAA game dev company. I will suck dick for food before I go back to that life ever again. Everyone used to think it was awesome that I worked in live sports TV. 70% of the people I worked with were miserable pricks with overinflated egos, and then there were the athletes. I knew several people that worked at my local TV station. They all basically said I got 5 minutes of training, and then I was editing the live news with no other instruction beyond if you screw up, you're fired. Apparently the turnover rate, both voluntary and otherwise, was brutal. People take TV way too seriously. Too seriously for me, at least lol, it's really pretty frivolous. So all of the jobs then. Seriously, WTF is going on? Any semblance of passion is destroyed. A lot of jobs suck, even if you are the lucky ones who work in something they are passionate about, some things are bound to suck. What the reality of the situation is that, most people don't get to work in fields they love, especially in a service economy like the US is. It's all about what you can tolerate for the amount of money you need to not die. Sadly, things wouldn't feel as shitty for most jobs if you were paid properly, given proper vacation time, proper time off to live your life and do your leisurely activities. Weren't forced to work long hours just to not die. Treated like a meaningful human being, not like some alienated cog in a machine. Let me tell you, I would gladly do a job that society deems less than, which is a shitty way of phrasing it because it's degrading, if they paid me $30/hour, gave me vacation time, holidays off, healthcare and a stable schedule that doesn't require me to do OT just to make ends meet. A lot more people would be a lot more happier, regardless of their work, if this was the case. Oh, you hate your job? There's a support group for that, you know. It's called Everyone. We meet at the bar. Most, not all, jobs in the environmental sector. Pay is usually quite low. You tend to work in very ugly places, landfills, contaminated sites. You are expected to get jobs done in half the time you really need with as few resources as possible. And if you are consulting for other companies, nobody really wants to be working with you to save the environment. They generally are just trying to barely meet some regulations. Edit: there are definitely exceptions, as some commenters have pointed out. Some people find a niche that works out very well for them. Just sharing my personal experience and that of other environmental professionals I have known. Edit #2. I don't mean to discourage anyone who really wants to pursue an environmental career, but I also really wish that I would have learned some of the negatives, in my comment and the many replies, before I began mine. As a result, I only lasted a few years as an environmental consultant and basically started over in a completely new field. I knew an environmental consultant. His job was practically helping companies avoid fines while still polluting the environment. He quit. That's why I quit my job in the mining sector. It was more, how do we hide this so we don't get fined, rather than let's be proactive. I was going to say something similar. I used to work for a conservation charity many years ago, taking volunteers out to do environmental work. Tree planting, tree felling, dry stone walling, coppicing, pollarding, hedge laying, you name it, all in some really beautiful places around Yorkshire. It was brilliant for a long time, but it's hard work when you're doing it every day. On top of the getting the jobs done on time, we had to look after volunteers, train them, make sure they were using tools right, and keep them motivated to come back tomorrow. We had some jobs that were so rough that we tried talking volunteers out of coming along because they'd never come back if they did. When you're on the 4th day of horizontal rain on a windswept hillside in the middle of nowhere, you're down to 3 volunteers who are losing the will to live, and you know that hedge you're laying is going to be dead come summer. It really gets you questioning your life choices. Weird thing is, I'd do it all over again if I was young enough. But I'm also glad that I'm not. Journalist. Expectation: I'm gonna be the next Hunter S. Thompson and write compelling feature pieces with a unique voice and get paid to travel the world. Reality: talking to my editor about how my contact from the cat fashion show won't call me back or do an interview unless we pay them $80 or adopt 2 cats. What kinda cats we talkie? Ones with clothes. Bruh, if anything, the cat fashion show thing is selling it to me more. Same. What are the stylish new trends? Chef/cook shit pay. Toxic work environment. Shitty hot working conditions. Megalomaniac / incompetent management and owners. Long shitty hours. Working every weekend and every holiday. The only people you will see regularly are your co-workers. And most people dist into alcoholism or drug abuse to cope. Most people get into it because they're passionate about it, and most bosses will take advantage of this. I spent 10 years in this field. I walked away with nothing other than the knowledge I gained, then had to re-enter to workforce at the bottom at the age of 30. Been out 5 years now, and started making more money and working less hours within a year. I wish I'd left sooner. Edit, I work in IT now. I got the job mostly through personality and luck. No, I've not seen the Netflix show, and have no intention to. This one I wholeheartedly agree with. Was in the kitchen for years cause I loved food and learning to cook new things all the time. Then the burnout happened real quick. Overworked and underpaid. It started taking my sanity and definitely did a copious amount of drinking and shit. Now, I am a bartender and weirdly enough, I drink way less than I used to. Also, I make more money and work less hours. I just wish bartending had health insurance. I went from an executive chef to just being a server. I make considerably more money and work about a half the hours. The stress is basically non-existent. I still love cooking, now I have money and time to cook for my friends and family instead of cooking for table 22 with the gluten-free, vegan, low-sodium, medium steak no pink, duchy ozel.